So what we are discussing on the pipeline, but let's look at some of the issues that makes it difficult for the implementation of the pipeline. And one of the issues is the dealing with the exception. And this is it's a very you have to understand that if a exception occurs, then how the pipeline is going to handle the exception. The exceptional situations are harder to handle in a pipeline CPU because of the overlapping of instructions makes it more difficult to know whether an instruction can safely change the state of the CPU. So when you are executing in a pipeline, it's not you had a one instruction in the pipeline, but rather we have a multiple instruction in the pipeline. And when an instruction changes the writes, then it's going to change. So it's if it's instruction writes to the memory or to write to the register, then the state is going to change. State of the machine is going to change. So you have to you have to know whether the any change in the state is safe or the change in the state is not a safe. Instruction in the pipeline can raise exception that may force the CPU to abort the instruction in the pipeline before they complete. So there are multiple instructions in the pipeline, and any instruction can raise an exception. And exceptions is basically what we call is an interrupt. It's a any instruction can generate an exception, and when an exception is generated, then the instruction may abort the pipeline. That means if a instruction executing and any exception is generated, then that instruction may be aborted. So when that instruction is aborted, there are also multiple instructions in the pipeline. Then what is going to happen to those instructions in the pipeline? One is the terminate. Now we call the terminate. Uh, the program execution stops after the interrupt. So if an exception has occurred, then as a result of this exception, the execution of the program is going to stop. Then we call it a terminate. And if it is if the exception is to terminate, it's easier to implement since this no need to restart the execution. So if an exception is generated, then you terminate that instruction, again you restart the instruction. So it is very easier. The other one is resume. The program execution continues after the interrupt. So here the if an exception has occurred, then you need to find out a mechanism to handle the exception and the continue with the execution of the program. Look at you terminate it. If the first case is you simply terminate the program, so it's easier. So you moment you encounter an exceptions, then you simply terminate the program. The other one says you need not you are not supposed to terminate the program. Rather, you find out a mechanism to handle the exceptions and resume the continue with the execution of the program. Now, the difficulty in implementing is of the exceptions where it says you have to resume the execution of the program. So it is difficult in implementing the interrupt occurring within the instruction where the instruction must be resumed. So it says if an interrupt has occurred for an instructions, then you need to resume the execution of the instructions. So the implementing the exception for those those type of exceptions is harder. Now, how to implement such exception? That means exception has occurred, then you'll resume the execution of this instruction after handling this exception. So we know that how to handle the exception or how to handle the interrupt. So if an exception occurs, then we know that we have to invoke another program, and that program saves the state of the executing program, then correct the cause of the execution program, They restore the state of the program before the instruction cause the exception, retry the instruction, and all the above step must be invisible to the executing the program. So we have also studied if execution of the program. Now, if the pipeline allows the machine to save state, so if this is how the exceptions are handled. In a pipeline also, if you are allowing the machine to save the state, then you handle the exception and restart without affecting the execution of the program. Then we say that the machines are restartable or the pipeline is restartable. That means if an exception occurs, save the state, handle the exception, restart without affecting the execution of the program. Such machines we call the restartable machines or restartable the pipeline. And all machine today are restartable at least for the integer pipeline. Now, so what do we say? If an exception occurs, you have to save the state, handle the exception. Again, you restart the machine, and to restarting, there are two the most difficult exceptions have two properties. One, they occur within the instruction. That means while we are executing the instruction has a different stage. At any stage of the instruction execution, the exception occurs. For example, the middle of the instruction execution corresponding to the execution stage or the memory pipeline stage. So at any of this stage, the exceptions occur. And they must be restartable. So these are the two difficult the exception the most difficult exception has the two properties. One, they occur within the instructions and they must be restartable. Now if the instruction is to be restartable, then you need to save the state of the machine, then handle the exceptions, then again restore back the state of the machine so that the normal execution of the instruction can begin. For example, the virtual memory page fault for a data page. So look at a page fault occurs for a data page if you are in the memory stage. Now the page fault occurs when an instruction enters the memory stage, and once an instruction in the memory stage, so there will be many other instructions already in the pipeline. So other instructions are already in the pipeline. Then the operating system must be invoked, save the state save the state of the pipeline, move the page to the. So if a page fault occurs, you then you need to handle the page fault. So we know that to handle the page fault, the OS is invoked, the state of the pipeline is the saved, the required page is to move to the memory, and required page move to the memory. Now to do this, the pipeline must be safely shut down, the state must be saved so that the instruction can be restarted in the correct state. So in it, the pipeline, you have to bring down the pipeline. So there are many instructions in the pipeline. So those instructions must be saved somewhere. The state of the machine has to be saved. The once you save the state of the machine, when you return back the program, then you have restored the state of the machine. Then you have to start executing at the correct state. And restarting is usually implemented by saving the PC of the instruction at which to restart. So you save the PC of the instruction from where the machine will restart its execution. And restarted instruction is not a branch. Now, if the restarted instruction is not a branch, then you start executing the instruction. And if the restarted instruction is branch, again you need to reevaluate the branch instruction. Then if the restarted instruction is not a branch instruction, then face the sequence and begin their execution. evaluate the branch condition and begin fetching either from the target or from the fall through. So he simply says that when you return back and you execute that instruction, whether that instruction is a branch instruction or it's not a branch instruction. So if it is a branch instruction, then you have to reevaluate the branch condition and begin fetching either from the target or from the fall through. Now, then how does the pipeline handle this one? The pipeline control take the following step to save the pipeline safely. So what you know that the pipeline step is to be safe, handle the exceptions, and return back to normal execution of the program. Now this is what the pipeline does. This is what is done in the pipeline to save the state. Now force a trap instruction into the pipeline on the next instruction fetch. This is the entry of an operating system, the trap. So it said if an exception has occurred, then you need to handle these exceptions. To handle the exceptions, you need to perform a certain operations that the state is to be saved. Then the control is to be transferred to the corresponding routine that is going to handle the exceptions. Then the control again is to be transferred to the original program where the instruction is executing. So if a exception occur, then in the next phase you force a trap into the pipeline in the next instruction phase. Now once when you force a trap instruction in the pipeline, and this instruction must be the entry point for an OS trap. Then until the trap is taken, turn off all the writes for the faulting instruction and all instruction that follows in the pipeline. Look at some instruction in the pipeline, a exception has occurred. Now, and when exception occurred, then the next instruction fetch, you put a trap into the pipeline. So put some other instruction into the pipeline so that it's going to handle the exception. So until the trap is taken, you turn up all writes for the faulting instruction, the instruction for which a fault is occurred, and all instructions that follows in the pipeline. Then how you do this? The above is done by placing all zeros into the pipeline edges of all instructions in the pipeline, starting from the instruction that caused the exception. Now it says that suppose a instruction in the execution stage has caused an exceptions. So there will be one instruction in the instruct sequence stage, there will be another instruction in the next instruction phase. So one instruction phase, instruction decode and execution. Now there is two more instruction, one will be in the memory stage, the other one instruction in the write back stage. So only the instruction in the execution stage has caused an exceptions. So in the next phase, you put a trap into the pipeline. You put a trap into the pipeline, and you do not allow the write to take place from the instructions that it causes an exception. The instruction that it causes an exception is in the execution stage. So the instruction in the execution stage, decode stage, and instruction phase stage, they are not going to perform any write operations. So this is possible. Look at we are looking at a 5-stage pipeline, and we may say that all the writes takes place in the write back stage. So this is not going to happen. But there are situations where a instruction takes a multiple clock cycle and instruction may execute out of order. So if the instructions execute an out of order, then this situation may take place. The some instructions may write the result before another instruction, but out of order executions we'll discuss at some part at a later stage of the lecture. But it simply says that if a fault has occurred, then you turn off all the writes, and you turn off all the writes by placing zeros into the pipeline latches, starting from the instruction that has caused an exception. But not those that precedes the instruction. That means it says if the exception has taken place in the execution stage, then turn up the writes for the instruction in the execution stage, in the instruction decode stage, instruction phase stage, but the instruction in the memory stage and write back stage can complete its the operation, and this prevents any writes therefore changing any the state. Then after the exception handling routine in the OS receives the control, so you have put a trap in control to the control. It immediately saves the PC of the faulting instruction, the instruction for which a fault has occurred. So it stored the PC of the faulting instruction, and this value will be used to return from the exception. So when the program is returned after handling the exceptions, the state of the machine will be restored. Now, suppose a instruction has caused an exception. Let's say this is the instruction I is for which this exception has occurred, and this instruction is a branch instruction. Suppose this is a branch instruction, and corresponding to this instruction an exception has occurred, and you are using a delayed branch technique. Now this is the branch instructions. What about instruction I plus 1? The instruction at I plus 1 is not the sequential instructions in the normal execution of the program. This instruction is a instruction in the delayed branch which has to be executed irrespective of the branch is taken or the branch is not taken. And if it is a branch and we are using a delayed branches, so what will be the value of this one? Suppose this is the PC is stored. Then what about this instruction? This instruction is already there in the pipeline, and this instruction is not the sequential instruction. So the PC of this instruction is also a different. So this PC also has to be the stored. So if it's and if you are using a delayed branch techniques, then we need to save and restore as many PCs as the length of the branch delay plus 1. So if my delay slot is 1, then I have to store the PC of this instruction, the instruction in the delay slot, plus the instruction that has caused the exception. So if the number of instruction in the delay slot, if there are is n, then I need to store n plus 1 PC. So it is says you to save and restore as many PCs as the length of the branch delay. If it is length of the branch delay is n, then all the delay the instruction which are there in the pipe that need to be stored plus the 1. Now you execute the service routine. So the last instruction in the operating system task handler is a special instructions that return the PC of the offending instruction. And in the MIPS architecture, the instruction is the called the RFE, return from exception. So the last instruction in a MIPS architecture is RFE, return from exception. So when it says the return from exception, it will restore back the state of the machine where it was executing, and the normal execution that begins. So the next instruction to execute is the one. So when it returns from the exceptions, so what it is saved? It is saved the instructions that has caused an exception. The exception is handled. Then it will resume execute the now is set to have precise exceptions if the pipeline can be stopped so that the instruction just before the faulting instructions are completed and those after it can be restarted from the scratch. So this is what we say a precise exception. A pipeline will set to have precise exceptions. Now you say if the instruction I has called an exceptions, then all instruction preceding instruction I, that is instruction I minus 1, instruction I minus 2, they'll be allowed to complete, and all instructions starting from the instruction I will be stopped, and though these instructions will start executing from the scratch. So all instruction preceding the instruction that is causes an exception, in this case instruction I, these instruction will allow to complete, and all these instruction after I will be started from the scratch. Then we say the pipeline is have a precise exception. Now a programmer prefers precise exceptions because easy to handle in the pipeline. Now, the any processor with a demand paging or a IEEE arithmetic trap handler must make it exception precise, either in the hardware or or by means of some software support. And for integer pipeline, the task of creating the precise exceptions are much easier. And if you look at the all processors that uses a virtual memory, so it says that that you must have a precise exception, so that you allow the all instructions exception to complete causes. So once the exception is handled, when you execute that instruction, that exception is not going to occur again. So all exceptions, at least for integer pipeline, must be the precise, and those system that uses a virtual memory supports the precise exception. The high performance CPUs have introduced two mode of operations. One mode is the precise exceptions, and the other that does not have a precise exceptions. And precise exception is slower since it allows less overlapping among the floating point, the instruction. Now let's look at how these exceptions can do. So what we have discussed, that there are exception can occur in the pipeline, and if an exceptions occur, there is a way to handle the exceptions, and we want that the exception to be precise so that it allow all instruction before the instruction causing exception to complete with the execution, and all instruction starting from the instruction that causes an exceptions are executed re-executed again. And in a pipeline, the exception that might occur in each of the pipeline stage. So a exception can occur at any stage of the pipeline. So let's look at what are the exceptions that may occur at a different stage of a different stage of a pipeline. In the instruction phase, there can be a page fault on the instruction fetch. So you fetch a instruction, you want to fetch a instruction, and that instruction is not there in the memory. So a page fault may occur. So a page fault on the instruction fetch, this it can be a misaligned memory access. Look at, if you're accessing a memory is not aligned, then there is to a mechanism to handle the misaligned memory access. So we did with one of the lecture I said, if you are not properly aligned, then you need to perform a two memory fetch to get the desired word. So it can be a page fault, it can be misaligned memory access, or it can be a memory protection violation. That means you are trying to access a memory which is not authorized for the user. So there can be a memory protection violation. So in an instruction phase, so this type of exceptions that can occur. Now in an instruction decode stage, you are using a opcode. The opcode is undefined or the opcode is illegal. So there can be an exception on this illegal opcode. And in case of an execution state, there can be a arithmetic exceptions. Now, what are arithmetic exceptions? You say simply says that divide by zero. Divide by zero is an arithmetic exception. Now, so in the memory stage, so in a memory stage, you can have a fetch fault on the data fetch. It can be a misaligned memory state, or it can be, it can be a memory protection violation. Now let's look at a write back stage. Write back stage, no exception can take place in the write back stage. What might be the reason that no exception takes place in the write back stage? Can anyone respond to this question? In a right way, look at in all the 5-stage pipeline that we are discussing, at every stage an exception may take place. but in a write back stage, no exception takes place. What might be the reason in our 5-stage pipeline that we're discussing that no exception takes place in a write back stage? Can anyone say the answer?
So because the last step.
Because the
Last step.
no
Last stage.
So because it's last step,
no.
and this is always the no dependency.
No, I'm not able to get. Can you repeat once again?
Sir, there is no dependency.
Sir.
No, page fault does not take. Look at exception is not occurring for any dependency. If you look at any of the steps, there is no dependency here. There is some specific reason for which the exception is occurring. The exception has nothing to do with dependency now.
So there is no exception because here we are writing back to the memory. If accepted to memory, already the where back.
Let me slightly correct it. So you've said, but only one word you have said is wrong. That you are writing to the register. Registers are always available, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So writing to the memory, look at if you write to the memory in a write back stage also, if you says that I will write to the memory, then there can be a memory protection violation. Possibly you want to try to write to a memory, that memory is not accessible to you. So there can be a memory protection violation. But in the write back stage, what you are doing? You are writing only to a specific register, and registers are always available. If the register is not available, then you cannot write to that register. It's only available and that register is already defined. So the registers are available. So so no exception is going to take place in the write back stage. In a pipeline, but if you look at, let's look at, we are talking about exceptions, and exception can take place at any stage. So in a pipeline, multiple exception may occur in the same clock cycle because there are multiple instructions in the execution. So let's consider this example. Now, if you look at, let's take at a memory stage. Let's take this execution cycle. So let's take this is clock cycle 1, this is clock cycle 2, let's say this is clock cycle 3, this is clock cycle 4. And let's look at the clock cycle 4. So in the clock cycle 4, there are two instructions. One is load instruction, add instruction. Execution stage. So the multiple except the load instruction can generate a memory protection violation, or it can generate a exceptions that the page fault on the data page, and add instruction can generate an exceptions that is arithmetic exceptions. It may be divided by 0, or there can be arithmetic overflow. So exception is going to there are multiple exceptions. So multiple exceptions may occur in the same clock cycle. In these instructions, in clock cycle 4, there are two exception can take place. So in clock cycle 2 also possible, clock cycle 3 also possible, and clock cycle 5 also possible. So multiple exception may occur in the same clock cycle. Now, if there are multiple exceptions occur in the clock cycle, then how such an exception is going to handle? Now, suppose we know that if you look at, if I execute this instruction is in a sequential manner. Suppose I'll execute this instruction sequentially. Now, if I'll execute this instruction sequentially, then a load will be executed first. So when the load will be executed and it entered to the memory stage, so it generate an exception. And when that exception is handled, next time again you execute this instruction, load instruction. So because the exception was already handled, so the memory stage is not going to generate an exception. So this instruction will be executed. So that exception should be handled. So the instruction, the exception for the load instructions should be handled first. Then the execution instruction will be executed. Now when it enters to the execution stage, again you generate an exception. So when that exception is handled, next time you again execute the add instruction because this exception was already handled. So no more this exception will not arise. If it was properly handled, then definitely it will not going to arise once again. Now what is it that two exceptions had taken place in clock cycle 4, but the load exception due to the load instructions should be handled fast. Then the exception due to the add instruction. So the now now let's look at. So it says multiple exceptions are occur. So if the exception due to the instructions which is at a higher in the pipeline to handle fast stage, the pipeline to be handled fast. Next, exception may occur at the exception may occur at the same stage. So this is what actually this is what we discuss. Exception occurs at the same stage. This is that means exception occurs in the same stage. Load instructions in the load instruction may generate an exception in the memory stage. Add instruction also may generate an exception in the memory stage. Now let's look at
Hello, sir.
exception. Yes.
If we handle the exception in the load stage first, that is the memory stage, so the next add instruction will be suspended, sir.
No. So
Like
let
we should
me.
suspend the instruction of add if you are
As
handling the load instruction exception.
let me slightly say this one. After that you can ask this question. I'm not able to get your question. That exception may occur. Now this is if you look at add instruction, the add instruction may generate an exception in the instruction decode stage, and the load instruction may generate an exception in the memory stage, right? Now I will again sequentially execute this instruction. Now if I sequentially execute this instruction, then the exception due to the load instruction should be handled fast. Now the suppose add instruction has decode stage. This exception to handle this exception. So exception due to this is handled. Then in the so this was in the third clock cycle. In the next clock cycle, the load instruction generate an exception. This exception due to memory, then you handle this exception. Now let's look at what has happened. The exception, the instruction should be executed in the same order. The exception should be handled exactly in the same sequence in which same sequence in which the exception would arise if the instructions are executed sequentially. Now, if I will execute the sequence instruction sequentially, the exception to do the load instruction should be handled first, then the exception due to the add instruction. Now, in this case, if you are handling the exception due to the add instruction at the instruction decode phase fast, then the exception due to the load instruction in the memory state, that means you are handling the exceptions out of order. So again, you are evaluating the mechanism, the principle of handling the exception. So exception may occur out of order. A instruction can cause an exception before an earlier instruction causes one. This is that add instruction causes an exception in the clock cycle 3 before the load instruction causes an exception clock cycle 4. But it must be handled in the same order. That any exception due to the load instruction must be handled before the add instruction. So am I able to answer to your question?
Sir, what I had asked is if you are considering LD load instruction as faulting instruction,
Right.
so we are dealing with the exception in the load instruction. So what you have previously said is the instructions after the load will be suspended and restarted from the scratch.
Right.
So if we, after considering the exception in the load, we have to wait for 2 or 3 clock cycles to handle the exception in the add. Is that
No.
right, sir?
This is the how the let's understand how the exceptions are handled. The load instruction has generate an exception, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So what happens? This load instruction is not going to complete the execution. any instruction before the load instructions are will be allowed to complete the execution because you are looking at the precise exception. So what it does, the PC for the load instruction will be stored. This is stored, right?
Yes, sir.
Now this is a fetch fault has occurred. The operating system handle the page fault, return from the page fault. So when it return from the page fault, it start again executing the load instruction. So when it execute the load instruction, when it start again, you fetch, decode, execute, you enter to the memory stage. Previously, the exception was generated, the exception is handled, so no more exception is going to take place in the memory stage. So no exception. So again, it goes back to the write back stage is completes. Then after that, the so this done. Then after that, the add after the load instruction, there is add instruction. Again, it proceeds in the same way. Okay,
Yes, sir.
right. Then how do we maintain the order of the if the exceptions occur out of order, but the exception should be handled exactly in the same way that it would have been handled if the instructions are executed sequentially. Now, if I'll execute the instruction sequentially, any exceptions any exception that was generated sequential a exception at a lower stage of the pipeline that it should not be handled. That means if the add instruction is generating a exception in the clock cycle 3, then it should not be handled. Now, if it's to be handled in the same way as a sequential instructions handle in the same way that the exception should have been handled in a sequential execution, then how it is done in the pipeline. So pipeline does not handle the exception when it occurs in the time. So it says that in clock cycle 3, the exception is generated with the add instruction. So it does not handle the exception when it occurs in the time. Then what it does? This is because it will lead to exception occurring out of the pipeline order. So if you look at, if I execute these instructions, then all exception due to the load instructions should be handled before all any exception due to add instruction is going to be handled. So if you are going to handle these exceptions as it generates in time, then the exception will be handled out of order. Now, then how does the pipeline handle the exceptions? So let's say let's go back to the previous one. Let this is instruction I. Let this be instruction I. Then add instruction as I plus 1. When a instruction generate an exceptions, then it's not going to handle that exceptions. Rather, it will post that exception in a exception vector. So what is it? Let's say add instruction is generated in the clock cycle 3. Look at load instruction had not generated any exception in clock cycle 3. So when this instruction, for every instruction, there is a associated status vector. So when an exception is generated, it posts this exception in its own status vector. So at clock cycle 3, it posts this instruction. Then when the load instruction goes to the clock cycle 4, that is instruction I, then the instruction I post it exception in its own status vector. So if an exception has occurred, the instruction post the exception in the status vector, and this status vector will be checked when it enters to the write back stage. So look at add instruction has a post the exception in own status vector. Load instruction has a post the exception in its own status vector. So when it enters to the write back stage, then it checks the status vector. Now, if there is an exception has occurred, then it handles that exception in the order in which it takes place. Let's say there might be an exception in the instruction decode stage, and there might be an exception in the memory stage for the same load instruction. So there are two exceptions are there. So what it does, it handles the exceptions for the load the instruction decode. Again, it execute because the instruction decode was the exception was handled. Then when the instruction goes to the memory stage, again would generate an exception. It will post in the status vector. So again, when it goes to the write back stage, again it checks there is an exception, so it handles the exception. Next time when it executes, it will completely execute this instruction without any the exception. So the exceptions are not handled, rather the exceptions are post in there is a hardware status vector, and in the right when the instruction enters to the write back state, it checks the status vector. If there is exception, it handle the exception in the order in which it occur. It handle the first exception. Again, you start execute. Not that it is going to handle all the exception at the if there are two exceptions that I said, one in the instruction decode stage, one in the memory stage. That means there are two exceptions are there. It's not going to handle both the exceptions. It will handle only one exception that has occurred earlier. So the exception due in the exception due, at the instruction decode stage has caused a earlier. So it will handle this exception first. So the hardware posts all exception caused by a given instruction in a status vector associated with that instruction. So every instruction is associated with a status vector, and if a that exception in the vector, once an exception indication is set in the exception status vector, any control signal that may cause a data value to be written is turned off. So this is what is how the write is turned off. Now any instructions, if an exception is generated due to any instructions, then write of that instruction is turned off. So it simply checks if if an exception status vector exception indication is set in the exception status vector, then write for that instruction is turned off. So you are not going to change the state of the machine. Now in the write back stage, the status vector, the exception status vector is checked. Exceptions are handled in the order in which they would occur in a time in a on pipeline machine. Now this is what I said, that in the loads, this is instruction fetch, instruction decode, execution, memory, and write back. Suppose that these two stage the exception has occurred, so it checks that in the instruction decode stage, instruction decode, and the memory stage. So it checks the status vector. In handle the exception, they would occur in the on pipeline in the on pipeline machine. This is the instruction decode exception will first occur. So it handle the instruction decode first, execute. Again, we enter to the memory stage. Again, exception will occur. Go to the write back stage, and you handle the exceptions for the memory stage. Then again you execute. When all exceptions handle, this instruction will complete its execution. Now let's look at the execution, how you will end to the instructions that takes a multiple clock cycle to execute. Now what we have discussed, that the all instructions takes a one clock cycle to perform any operation at any stage of the pipeline. But there are instructions that is going to take in reality that's going to take a multiple clock cycle to multiple clock cycle in the execution stage. For example, the floating point operation. The floating point operations usually takes several clock cycles, several execution clock cycles. Now the floating point operations completing in, suppose if a floating point operation takes a multiple clock cycle, and the floating point the floating point operations the completing in one or a 2 clock cycle required. That means if you say it says that we have discussed a pipeline where all stages are taking a single clock cycle. Now if you say that the floating point operations may takes a multiple clock cycle. Now if you want the floating point operations to take a single clock cycle, in that case the clock cycle has to be longer. Either the clock cycle is to be longer, or use an enormous amount of logic in the floating point unit, or it's both. If you want it should be the completing in 1 clock cycle or in a 2 clock cycle, then you have to make the clock cycle longer. Let's say in our pipeline machine we have a clock cycle, and the clock cycle time is very small. Now if you perform a floating point execution, then that may take a multiple number of that clock cycle. So, and if you want that the floating point operation should complete in one clock cycle, then you need to stretch your clock cycle time. Either you have to have a slow clock or put a enough hardware logic so that it can be completed in one clock cycle, or you have to do the both. The the floating point instruction having the same pipeline as the integer instruction. Now let's assume that the floating point execution take a multiple clock cycle. When it takes a multiple clock cycle, that means it is taking a multiple clock cycle of the integer pipeline. So the floating point instruction having the same pipeline as the integer instruction. Now we have discussed about the integer pipeline. In an integer pipeline, the execution takes only one clock cycle. Now, if I am going to extend my integer pipeline to the floating point pipeline, then the floating point execution will take a several number of clock cycle. So this takes a several number of clock cycle, or the clock cycle need to be a repetitive clock cycle so that the execution can be completed. The execution cycle is repeated as many times as needed to complete the operation. So this is what he says. I am extending the integer pipeline. The integer pipeline that we have discussed, it take one clock cycle. Floating point operations takes multiple, let's say floating point addition, floating point division, it takes a multiple number of clock cycle. If my integer pipeline to be extended, then the execution cycle has to be repeated many times. So the execution cycle is repeated as many times as needed to complete the required operation. Then you need to have a multiple floating point, the functional unit. Now, in this case, a stall will occur if the instruction to be issued causes structural hazard for the functional unit it uses. Now, he says that we are extending our integer pipeline to the floating point pipeline. Execution takes a multiple clock cycle, and there are multiple functional. Look at, we had now a multiple functional units. Now, in spite of having a multiple functional unit, a stall will occur if the instruction to be issued. Look at, we have defined what is the issued. Issued means instruction move from the instruction decode state to the execution stage. Then we say the instruction is the issued. Now a stall will occur if the instruction to be issued causes a structural hazard for the floating point unit it uses. We had a multiple functional unit, but the functional units, if they are not pipeline, and two instructions that uses the same functional. Let's say we had a floating point adder, it takes a 4 clock cycle. Then another instruction that comes, I'm going to use the floating point adder. Since the floating point adder is already used and it is not pipeline, it will the floating point operation will complete it at the end of the 4 clock cycle. So another instructions that needs the floating point unit will be stalled because the floating point unit is already being used by some other instruction. So a structural hazard for the floating point unit it uses, or there can be a data hazard. If there is a data hazard, then you need to stall the pipeline. So let's assume that there are 4 separate functional units. There is an integer unit that handle the load, the store, integer ALU operation, and all the branch operation. There is a 2 multiplier. The floating point there is a multiplier which performs the floating point multiplication, and there is a integer multiplication. Both is done. There is a separate floating point adder which performs the floating point addition, subtractions, and some the conversion. Then there is a divider which can perform floating point division and integer division. So multiplier performing floating point and the integer multiplication, divider performing floating point and integer division, and there is an integer unit to handle all integer operations, and there is a floating point unit to handle all floating point operations like addition, subtraction, and conversion. Now assume that the execution stage of the floating point units are not the pipeline. The instruction is is issued to the floating point only when it is the free. The instruction is issued to the floating point unit only when that floating point unit is free. And if an instruction cannot proceed to the execution stage, the entire pipeline behind that instruction will be stalled. So let's look. Uh, pipeline also, and this is my integer unit. This is multiplier unit, perform floating point or integer multiplication. This is my floating point adder. Look at, it takes a multiple number of clock cycle. The floating point adder also takes a multiple number of clock cycle, and divider also takes a multiple number of the clock cycle. Now, in this case, we are assuming that these units are not the pipeline. That this takes a multiple number of clock cycle, but it's not pipeline. Adder also take a multiple number of clock cycle, is also not pipeline, and divider also takes a multiple number of clock cycle. Suppose you decode an instruction, and if it is a now there are multiple functional units. So there are four functional units. Suppose you get an instruction and it is an integer, then you send to this functional unit. So this will take some number of clock cycle right to the memory. Now, in the previous case, we are discussing the out of order write. I said that some instruction may take a multiple number of clock cycle, as a result of which the write can be out of order. Let's say instruction I1 is an integer instruction. This is an integer instruction. So it will take one clock cycle. The completes the execution, writes. Let's say next instruction is a floating point adder. Let's say it's a floating point adder. Let's take a 2 clock cycle. So it comes here. It takes 2 clock cycle. So, and let's say again the instruction I3 is an integer instruction. Now, when this instruction is issued to this, then this instruction which takes a 2 clock cycle in the floating point adder and the integer instruction I3, both will be completing in the same clock cycle, and they try to write to the memory. So again, there is the problem. So when both of them write to the memory, both cannot write. So again, a hazard is going to take place. So this will next class will take an example of how the instructions are executed in this the pipeline, where it takes the execution take a multiple number of the clock cycle, and we'll trace also how the execution takes place and how the stall is going to take place in such type of the pipeline. So you can leave and join for the next class.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, exception can occur in each stage.